Now, in conclusion to this series, which has been a long time in coming, for which I am sorry, want to kind of wrap it up for you, talk about just some really general basic things as we look to maybe transition. And transition from your self-work to maybe working with other people. One of the challenges you're going to have is working with other people, but you need to lay a foundation for yourself. There are a couple ways of looking at this. In the literature, what is reflected in what shows in life, this is mainly from the psychotherapy world, but it's been also talked about in the Dharma world of the meditators and whatnot, is that there are two schools. One is that you have a school of people that have their life together, and the other is there are people who don't have their life together but somehow are good practitioners. To me, the second category is very hit and miss. So, to me, personally, I've heard a number of comments. Maybe these are not necessarily appropriate or fair or kind, but they are perceptions, and I think that they have to be honored, and there is some truth to these. One person said to me, I went to this counselor with my wife, so understand there's a little bit of, a little insecurity there, and he was like 400 pounds, probably not. How could I listen to this guy? He couldn't even get his own life together. Again, it's probably sort of an unfair comment. Myself, before I was getting my weight under control, and I was actually about 100 pounds larger than I am now, I received a comment when I was giving a talk, and people in the crowd were supposed to comment. It was of a spiritual nature, that I was overweight, and it really didn't have anything to do with my presentation skills or how good or bad my message was. But when we do look at the spiritual life, people do look at how well put together you are. So this is an important facet nonetheless. For me, it starts off with having sort of a total life picture, and this is one of the reasons why I've been trying to be very painstaking with you about the journal, about doing the self-work. Even this week I had a challenging situation, and then after it was over I asked myself, oh yeah, now what were those 3 cards in the morning? I had forgotten what they were, and sure enough, going back, they were the Prince of Cups as the significator, with the Knight of Swords on one flank and the Hanged Man on the other. And the idea was proper emotional regulation requires being able to have contemplation and acceptance of anxiety and working through that dynamic. And so it made a lot of sense, and I was able to find my balance, and I went into some yoga practice and was able to pull out of that a lot better. And now one of the things I've been doing, especially since then, is to say, what were the 3 cards today? And what were yesterday's 3 cards? And how do they relate? That's one of the reasons why I track in the journal, and I've been showing that to you and trying to push, and also for you to see sometimes how there are patterns. Like, for example, a flank card might be predominantly a water card as a background, but have an air element, so it's an air element visiting water. And then the other flank card, wow, coincidence, air element is visiting a water. And these things aren't accidents, or both have Mercury in them in one way or another. And looking at those things and seeing patterns, it's one of the reasons I also talk to you about colored pencils, because that makes it very vibrant. It pulls it out to you. For example, yesterday my 2 flank cards were fire card backgrounds with earth elements in them. So it was about grounding and disciplining power and energy, and it made a lot of sense because the center card was the 7 of Swords, futility, which is a bad choice, and it's fog, and you can get all caught up in it. It's where you say it's not Comcast, it's complex, and oh my gosh, what do I do? Ground that energy. So part of it is digging your own well, which is what they would say to us in seminary. dig your own well deep, because when you start giving out of your own well to people, and by the way, there's a really great Buddhist understanding of that. It's basically you're giving from your grace bank account. You need to have a well that is full of a lot of water. If you have a cracked cistern that can't hold a lot of water, and you're not going to do very well. So look at aspects in which to spiritually develop yourself. Another way to look at it is, for example, like say crystals or stones. If you work with these, we look at this, it's solid, it's not moving, right? But we know from a molecular level, this is predominantly full of space, so it's not solid, and actually it's quite much in motion. But if I don't work on my own personal levels of vibration, I can't match this, I can't get anything from it. I need to raise my own level of energy in order to get any benefit, or else it's just a really nice, expensive paperweight. So again, it's working through those. Again, you see I'm not quite wearing very nice things, and maybe you remember through those videos. I was actually doing a lot of that after my yoga, my morning yoga practice. I should be clarified on that. Because for me, coming out of a practice of Hatha yoga, sun moon yoga, that's the more physical kind of yoga, I'm in a better place, in a better space. That's actually when I do a lot of my best readings. That's why I do my morning reading then, because I'm coming out of that space. So finding a time of the day. In the morning, like for example, when I do any exercise or Hatha yoga or whatever, you tend not to be as stretchy, as flexible, and your body's not as warmed up. However, the payoff is you haven't been going so much about the day, you're not distracted, you're actually more tranquil and at peace. And so mornings are very good. It used to be said in this last generation, when people said they wanted to get very serious about their Christianity and they said, what should I do? People would respond, do you have a good alarm clock? I get up at 4:30. That's how I pack in my day, because I want to start it off full of grace. And speaking of grace, from a Buddhist perspective, the more you give of grace, the more your grace gets refilled. So if you take your cup and you pour it out, I'm not going to, your cup gets refilled, but you have to pour it out on other people. So again, this is why we do that. So we want to work our own character, work our own lives, have a deep well through our practice, and then have an application where our world and the people in our world that we touch are better off because we're there. It's actually one of the first prayers I say at the end of my practice when I'm closing in is, may I be an instrument of grace, may I be able to be light and love and hope and positive energy to those I touch today. Because it's like if the cabin pressure drops and oxygen seeps out of an airplane and the masks fall down, you put your own mask on first before you put it on someone else. You've got to do your own self-care. And then you can help other people and help them quite a bit. So I believe in that very much. Let's help other people. Let's put them first. But we got to make sure we're centered, we're taking care of ourselves, and we're grounded. You know, that's why you need all the chakras. If someone says, well, I just do the 6th chakra, that's someone I kind of want to almost walk away from. So again, let's work our own time. Another thing is music. You want to watch the kind of music. As you hear, we have some Indian music in the background. But I also am a big fan of, I guess it's the Relaxation Company, also done through Sounds True. You know, these various pieces that I listen to when doing my yoga practice, depending on what's going on. It can even be that I do a very similar practice that can be very physically rigorous. But at night, I tend to do something more like this to calm down, and so I slow it down even though it's very physically demanding practice. While in the morning, I want to learn to concentrate and focus more, so I have a different kind of approach. Again, you want to watch your music and use something that helps set a mood. You need that for yourself. I also, if you probably noticed, have a very similar space. This is sort of my chapel. I do my yoga in here, I do my prayer, I do my readings. This is a place that I've invested with a lot of time and energy. something I do when working with myself or with other people, especially with other people, is you want to help people move in and out of sacred space. And you can create sacred space from anywhere simply by finding great ways to bookend things, to have a clear start and a clear stop. So it can be as simple as, let's tune in, you do a reading, let's tune out. I like to use tingsha, which are actually little hand symbols. You know, I ding them like, say, 3 times, because 3 is a good number of completion. And so it's solid, and it's a foundational, it can stand alone. A 3-legged stool can stand, but not a 2-legged stool. So I do that. It's 3 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and it helps clear the air. And it marked off our time. So you want to think of these kinds of incidentals. The last thing I want to touch on is personal power and responsibility and delegation. In leadership positions, you can delegate everything but one thing. And what is that one thing you cannot delegate? And that is responsibility. I am very sad to say there is not a month that goes by in which some sitter or querent does not try to delegate the responsibility for their life back to me. And whenever they do that, I always do this, and because they often do that in the question, I try to help them, rephrase them, honor their ability of choice and responsibility. They push it back, and then I say, no, I can't do that. It's your life. I'm not going to tell you of the 3 people you named who you're going to marry, or whether you should or shouldn't quit your job in a few months. These are very serious things. I'm not going to have to live with the consequences of those actions. Your sitters will continually try to push responsibility to you, and you must honor them, even if it means you lose money, because you want that grace cup, right? By honoring their choice, their power of choice, and their responsibility. You got to tell them they have to take their power back. It's very tough. And again, then you have to also look in your own life. I have to look in my life. Who am I delegating my power to, my responsibility, that I shouldn't be? Am I blaming someone in my past? Well, I can't do that because they did this to me. It's our life. Even if they were wrong to do it, it is our responsibility to clean it up. No one's going to come and clean up our lives for us. That's why we do the work. You know, you and I don't have to vibrate high enough to make use of these. It's a choice. We have to make that choice to rise to that level. And I believe every person can. I don't believe it's easy, but I believe it can happen. And that's why we need to really look at our impression of the Emperor card. That is a very crucial, powerful card that a lot of people do not like, but in fact is the 3rd chakra, Manipura chakra, volition, power, energy, the solar plexus, solar system here, discipline, that will help us overcome, gain our power, take responsibility for our lives, and move forward. We need to look at that seriously. Make friends with that card. Do a loving compassion meditation on a card you don't like. And find that. But we start, before we can read for anyone else, we have to start with ourselves. It's like a spiritual journey, especially with yoga. You start with your own body. You start with your own mind, your own soul. Because that's the closest thing to you. And you've got to start there before you can move out or move in. You've got to start there. So before we can help any other people, you know, in case of emergency, when the masks drop, put one on yourself before you put one on someone else. Let's put on our own mask. Let's not be, what was that word to heal? Jesus liked to say, hypocrite, 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 hypocrite. We've got to walk our own talk. And once we can do that, then we can be light, grace, and love, and a positive energy in the spaces of which we operate, that our world is a better place because we are in it. Namaste.